Hello and welcome to Light Warrior Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Karen Can, author of the #1 bestseller, Sensitivity is Your Superpower: How to Harness Your Gifts, Fulfill Your Purpose, and Create a Life of Joy. Would love for you to join the Light Medicine community on Circle, and that's at karencan.com/community. And then we also have a really cool PDF. If you are a highly sensitive soul, which apparently 33% of us are in the world, you can also get the Sensitive Soul Empowerment Guide, the 3 ways of manifesting your way to more peace, positivity, and personal power. And you get that at sensitivesoulguide.com. And today I have a very special guest today. I'm super excited. Brian Piergrossi. We have been working together for a number of weeks, probably months now. I've lost track of time. So my husband and I have been doing couples sessions with Brian, and Brian's doing one-on-ones with my husband as well. And how I found Brian was very interesting because I was getting back into trying to understand the whole divine masculine essence, feminine essence. I felt personally that I was, because I was like really into my business and growing, that I was not fully able to embody my divine feminine because business is so masculine. So I reached out to a group that I'm in. Hey, does anybody know anyone who does this stuff and couple stuff and understands like what a star seed is, right? Because that'll just narrow it down. And somebody reached out to my husband. And so that's how I found Brian. And let me tell you a little bit about him before we formally introduce Brian to the show. So he's a beacon of light who's been profoundly impacting many, many lives worldwide over 17 years. Struck by a decade-long battle with chronic fatigue syndrome at just 20. I got mine at 32. So Brian, you got it earlier. Brian's journey of inquiry into human suffering led to over a decade of deep study across many disciplines, including spirituality, psychology, health, and more, guided by the world's foremost mentors. Following a pivotal decision during a rain-soaked night, he left his life in Northern California to empower others in transcending suffering and realizing their deepest aspirations. He's the author of 2 inspiring books and has engaged audiences across the globe through transformative retreats, workshops, and lectures in over 24 countries. His wisdom reaches further through media appearances, widely shared social media posts, based in Southwest Virginia with his wife, Annie. Brian continues to guide personal and collective healing through breathwork, journeys, retreats, both online and in person. Thank you, Brian, for being here. So
Thank
excited.
you, Karen. Great to be here.
Yeah, this is really, really cool that we're talking about. I know you do a lot of different things and have a great breadth of expertise in multiple areas. Today, we're going to kind of focus on that masculine,
Hmm.
feminine polarity, those energies, because that's been super, super interesting for me to dive in. So before we kind of dive into the topic, can you tell us a little bit more about you and your journey since you were 20 and got sick? Or even
Yeah, I'll relate it to the masculine feminine polarity because I think there's 3 stages that
mm,
most people move through on the spiritual path. I would say probably everybody moves through to some degree, but maybe they move through them quicker or they're more subtle. But yeah, I was sort of largely unconscious of the spiritual depth that's within us, pretty much completely, and then had this illness that you mentioned, the chronic fatigue syndrome, and that really kind of made me look deeper into my life and made me kind of realize it basically was a real jar to the ego, because the ego thinks, oh, I'm in control, everything's going to go the way I want it to go, and it's like, oh, it's like the scene comes to a halt and it's not going the way you thought it was going to go at all, and then everything was it was very disorienting for me to say the least. It was very painful, right? And so the great thing about pain is what is it's like a call to attention. It allows us to go deeper into ourselves and explore ourselves more deeply. So that really began my spiritual journey, my journey into being a seeker of truth, being a on the journey of spiritual awakening, a journey of enlightenment, as I called it at the time, self-realization, a lot of different terms for it. And that scene is more of a feminine scene, right? What we consider kind of like the new age scene is more of a feminine scene. And I would say I went into more of a feminine energy, more of kind of going with the flow, being with the flow. Um, yeah, sensitivity, more um, receptivity. All these things are good things, and they're like a necessity to receive spiritual downloads, spiritual insight, spiritual truths. Um, so this was more of a stage two, which would be more of a feminine stage. And then I had to learn to reintegrate the masculine in a conscious, um, powerful way for the positive benefit of others, right? Because there's kind of this thing when you're in the stage two that like the masculine is bad, or it's, people talk about the patriarchy, all the stuff, like it's like this
Mm,
horrible, bad, terrible thing. And while there are traumas that have happened, historically, that are carried inside us, um, we need the masculine, and I think that was kind of what I saw, what that was happening. It's like, oh, we need this energy. This is something that's being called forth. And actually it was mostly women that were telling me that we need we need the energy, right? And so I felt this call to integrate the masculine in a positive, conscious, intentional way that I think's been very powerful. And I think it's really up in the collective right now. It's something that it's really one of the most alive, vital topics that people are talking about, and people are feeling a need to kind of explore. And there's a lot of misconceptions, I think, about what feminism is and what it isn't, and ways that it's actually been uh, destructive, I would say, for humanity. And so we can talk about some of that as well. But
sure.
the main thing is that parallels, you mentioned David did it, parallels the three stages that he talks about as well. So, so stepping into that third stage, that third level of reintegrating the masculine in this powerful, conscious, intentional way, um, I started to share what I learned and what I've been discovering, and working with people individually and also with couples. And yeah, it's been really powerful stuff.
Yeah, that's so neat.
Mm.
Um, there's there's this term that I didn't actually know about until recently. Sometimes I'm a little behind on the lingo.
Mhm.
It's called toxic masculinity, and I
Yeah.
recently learned about toxic positivity, and I'm like, that's a thing. So tell us about like why is this like out there in the ethers now? People talking about toxic masculinity.
I think anything can be toxic when it's not, like, toxic masculinity if it doesn't honor, if there's a man who's not honoring the feminine, or has some kind of, you know, in extreme cases, hatred for the feminine, then that
Mm,
would be a toxic masculinity, right? I think there's also toxic femininity, where people don't know how to honor the masculine and integrate the masculine. And toxic positivity, I haven't heard that one before, but I can imagine I can imagine what that is. And you don't embrace the hardship, or you don't embrace the
mm,
difficulties or the challenges of life. So um yeah, I think it's all about honoring all the parts of ourselves.
mm,
And if that yin yang sign is so perfect, because, like, if we are a man, we do have an aspect of the feminine in ourselves, and if we are a woman, we do have an aspect of the masculine in ourselves. And for each person, it can be more or less, because we're all designed, divinely designed in different ways. Some of us can be even more balanced inside,
right.
but the masculine and the feminine is all around us. So we think of this is this is with relationship dynamics. So for between a man and woman, for example, but it's learning to be with the masculine and feminine all around us. So even if I walk through nature, I'll pick up certain things that are feminine, certain things that are masculine. And it's like, can we really learn to embrace and appreciate and honor both those energies? Because both these energies together is where the creativity and the dynamic quality happens. You know, those energies
Mm,
coming together is what made all of us, right? And so it's like it's this powerful creativity when they come together, that all kinds of amazing, miraculous things come into being, but only through being able to embrace the two in synergy together.
Right. Well, we've seen this trend, Brian, of, the over the decades, men growing their hair long, right,
Yeah.
wearing a lot of colors,
Mhm.
traditionally, more feminine, getting in
Mhm.
touch with their feminine sides and doing the sacred dance or, these sorts of things through definitely the, 70s, right? We saw some of that. And that was seen as like a good thing. Like, so
Mhm.
the women were now in the workforce, right? Working 9 to 5, and all those movies came out. Everybody had those big, shoulder pads, right? Like they were in the workforce. And so we were thinking this was progression. So is it progression or is it regression? Or were we just part of that 1, 2, 3 stage that we are now growing out of or into a new
I
stage?
think it was part of the stage. I think it was the sense of yeah, we want to explore this other. So let's actually take the woman side. I think that's the more interesting side to me. So women had this sense of they want power. We want more power. We're being disempowered. So I think what happened is when women when they looked at power, they looked at what men were doing because men were the ones that were in power. So trying to emulate the man and trying to do what the man does and wear the clothes the man does and all of this, right? And I think what's happening now is that there's this sense that um, that hasn't really made women in and of itself feel more happy or more fulfilled or more balanced or more relaxed or more playful or more fun, you know? And I think what's being realized is there is a feminine power that is equally as powerful as the masculine power, but it's almost like it wasn't even noticed or it wasn't even known to exist. It was so like under the radar. So now
Mm.
I think a lot of women are realizing I want to access um my feminine power, which is needed also in the world. And I want to find that and explore that. And they need each other. Like the masculine can't exist without the feminine can't exist without the masculine. So then to bring it into the couples work, it's like for a woman to be able to relax and play and be soft and be in her feminine energy, it is very, very helpful to have somebody playing the masculine energy that she feels safe and protected inside that energy to really relax into her
Mm.
feminine. So that's the kind of like the power of the couples work that I've been.
Yeah, it seems to me that, just over the years, my observation, it could be just biased of like who ends up in my sphere of influence, but it seems like when I look back at my parents' generation, for example, I grew up with the conditioning that the woman, pretty much is her job is to make the man happy. And so whatever dad's decision was, that was the decision, whether my mother liked it or not. And I saw her growing from this really meek and timid um, person who one would even maybe call weak, just kind of like kowtowing to whatever the in-law said, whatever, dad says,
Mhm.
to going out in the workforce, realizing she was incredibly talented and gifted
Mhm.
as a teacher,
Yeah.
and earning her own money.
Mhm.
And because the purse strings weren't held by the man anymore, whether it be her father, like in her mother's case, she had her own. There were arguments, yes, about money for sure.
Mhm.
Um, but because of that, she got to say what she really felt and got
Mhm.
to have an opinion.
Mhm.
So I got to see that she became stronger now, maybe to the point where, instead of assertiveness, she got a little aggressive at times, almost like a backlash for all the suppression, if you will, of
Yeah.
how it was. So like sometimes people say, hey, the suffrage movement was definitely there to just make a whole bunch new category of little happy little taxpayers.
Mhm.
The women are now happy little taxpayers. Ha ha, I gotcha. But you didn't know that's what it was for, right? And then we feel this betrayal, like, wait, what? So, I mean, how is it bad, like, for women to like be in the workforce, to actually, have their own money and feel safe in even of themselves without a man?
Yeah. Okay, so great question. A couple things. So one is that a woman can be in the workforce and be in her feminine, right? So actually, when I saw you just did the opening to this podcast, right? And I was observing you, and I'm like, she's in her feminine right now, you know? Um, just a lot of life and radiance and flow and movement and energy and that's awesome, so that you really felt like your authenticity was coming through in that. And I think that's I feel like that's really good for women to know that they don't have to. Now also it's important to say there are women that are more masculine and that's their natural essence,
Right.
and there are men that are more feminine and that's their natural essence. But the bottom line is like be yourself, right? So you can be a feminine woman and you can be in business or you can be doing what your passion is or what you love and you can bring that into that space. And yeah, I think part of that stage that totally makes sense of like there's the oppression, there's a suppression, there's the I want to be independent. I want to be independent of the suppression. So that would be kind of like the stage two of like the woman wanting to be independent. And it feels like there's another level where there could be a higher order synergy with the masculine and the feminine, where it's not I'm independent, I'm separate, you're over there, I'm over here, but we're in this synergistically together and we're dynamically creating something together.
Mm,
I think inside us, like, some people I think their calling is to be um single, be an individual, and those people are probably there's stories of people historically who live a more monastic, ascetic life, and they're deeply in communion with God, and there's in a cave, and they're doing their thing. But I think most people do have a calling to have this synergistic union with the masculine and the feminine together.
mm. Yeah, it's interesting because I knew for quite a while after doing some study and David Data's books, we
Mhm.
talked about that in our sessions,
Yeah.
that I was primarily a feminine essence, and then
Hmm.
I kept attracting, but I had a masculine
Hmm.
mask, if you will, in
Yeah.
order to protect myself. Somehow I didn't feel safe,
Yeah.
and so I kept attracting like the opposite energy.
Hmm.
Well, it depends how you look at it. So my first husband was very masculine in that he knew where he wanted to go. He was very directional, right?
Hmm.
He just had this, his emotions though were
Hmm.
up and down and up and down and up and down. So I felt like I had to hold the space,
Hmm.
hold the stability for the emotions. Heaven forbid, like I have like up and down emotions, because then who's going to hold for me? And so that was a repeat of my childhood, where my mom was the emotional one and my dad could not hold the space. So as a child, I began to hold the space for her and be really, really stable. So right now I feel like I'm like learning how to figure out how to right the ship so I can be my divine feminine, yet have those elements of the masculine to also help me. So yeah, no one's gonna mess with me, right? Not just because I know
Hmm.
kung fu, but because I have that confidence, but at the same time, the feminine is like, these are not the joys you're looking for. So I can like energize my way out of any situation where there may be confrontation or maybe violence. That's kind of like the Anastasia book series, this Ringing
Hmm.
Cedars, right? How she's just being a certain way and she doesn't have to use violence at all. Yeah, so it's just like I'm guessing that you're seeing this pattern among people, men, women, and just curious if you see this opposite, like the feminine has this masculine mask, the masculine has this feminine mask, and they're doing this dance, and then now they're trying to like right the ship so it's correct.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think the feminine to me is the more magical essence. So the feminine is the feeling state, the intuitive state, the sensitivity to what's happening energetically. Um, so I think the feminine is really, really powerful in that way. Um, and the masculine can, again, provide the safety and protection, can provide the structure, can provide the organization, can provide the what's the word, um just the container for that energy to flower, because the feminine energy, I think it does need to be, it needs to feel relaxed, in order
Mm,
for this to really flower,
yeah, that's
you
a
know.
toughie. I
It
mean,
is, I
not just
think.
for me, but so many women, so many, like most people that listen are, highly sensitive souls. And so they've literally burnt themselves out trying to nurture everyone, and they become the last there. So they're having such a hard time trying to be in a masculine world, if you will, having the direction, bring the money in, and whatever. And whereas they're not getting the seemingly support from the masculine side.
Yeah, I think it's probably the number one issue, you know.
Hmm.
And so how do you do that? um I think there's a lot of trauma of feeling like the feminine can't trust the masculine, so
Yeah.
that's why the feminine can't relax, because it can't trust the masculine to be that's presence of safety and protection and direction and structure and organization, and really feel like it's um that the masculine, I mean, to put it simply, like loves the feminine, you know um and so I think trust, right? It's like, how do we create that trust where the feminine can trust the masculine and the masculine can honor the feminine, and they work together in that way. So I think, like, building that trust, and it kind of would start with trusting yourself, right?
Mm.
Because it's like, you don't want to trust every masculine man. Some you don't want to trust, right? So there's like that intuitive sense of like, oh, I trust, my intuition is telling me to trust you and to open myself to you and to relax into you and to let go and
Oh,
surrender to you, and not to you, right? So kind of like be able to trust
interesting.
that.
Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I'm kind of a recluse, but I just don't feel a lot of that trust in general. Like when I'm out and about in society at conferences or whatever, like I have such a big energy. I'm such a mover and a shaker. It's almost like, I don't know, maybe my divine masculine is so big that there is not the other masculine to match it in everyday society. And maybe that's the wrong assessment, but it just seems
Mm.
like I'm not really that interested in other men. I have to say, it's just like, I mean, I can appreciate, but I don't necessarily trust them to guide the ship, if you will, yet. Mm.
Interesting. I would say, in my interactions with you, I feel like you trust me.
Yes,
That's my sense. So yeah, I don't mean
the
it in,
exception.
there's like the deeper level of what, like a husband, the romantic
Yeah.
sexual thing, and then there's just like, I trust this man in this area, and I feel like he's got my best interest. I feel like he cares about me. I
Mm,
think the most important thing, honestly, is presence, right? We've talked about this a bit before, like
yeah.
feeling like he's present. So if he's present, then he sees me, he gets me, he's listening to me, he's picking up
Mm.
my signals, and he can guide things, in the right way because of that.
Yes. Well, I have several business mentors, right? And I was literally blubbering away for the fourth or fifth time, in my last business mentoring call. Obviously, I trusted,
Yeah. Yeah.
them to not, well, for them to hold me in that space.
Yeah.
And they were just, wonderful.
Yeah.
They got me and it was really, really awesome to experience
Hmm. Yeah. So it's good to notice those moments.
that.
And I
Hmm.
think it builds that trust more.
Yeah. It's funny because I think in the past, my husband's, was, you know, very, he would even say territorial, like not like he owns me or anything like that, but like, who's looking at my wife and,
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But I was like trying to explain to him, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I am so not interested, at this point. Like, you have to be like show up there, and an expanded presence, as you talked about,
Hmm.
for me to even give you like any sort of attention at all in that department. So, I mean, the grand majority of people, I'm like, whatever. You're a nice person, that's nice. We can have this kind of relationship, but not anything in particularly, intimate or deep. So, I think that's really interesting. Brian, what I see for the women who have, in my age group, in the, 50s, 60s, is so they have this caregiving role, and that,
Hmm.
like as a former medical doctor, acupuncturist, it would be in a married situation. A lot of times it's the woman who would be taking this responsibility role in the health of their partners. So
Hmm.
the partners were in a kind of emasculated state where, and I've been there, so where they're not really taking full responsibility for their own health. So the woman is taking responsibility for them, which is not very balanced, but I've been
Yep.
there,
Yep.
where they're like, okay, well, I think it's this, you should go to this doctor or you should see this person. And why aren't you, you have bad habits, like, why aren't you quitting smoking, blah, blah, blah. And then men, they become their mothers,
Yep.
and then the men become resentful. So what's that dynamic about?
Well, yeah, another interesting topic. So what I found, I made some videos about this and people gave me good feedback that they thought was insightful. So men tend to, or let's just say the masculine tends to think more about itself, himself first, and the feminine tends to think more about others first.
Okay.
So,
Hmm.
so this is, I think, part of why we come together because we have lessons for each other. We could teach each other things. So I find, you mentioned women in their 50s. So there's a lot of women that they've been mothers, and they've been like caring for other people their whole life. And all of
Hmm.
a sudden, the empty nest syndrome, they're like, oh my God, my life's over. This is horrible. And it's like, no, this is a new chapter. Now it's time to focus on you, which you haven't done your whole life, and make that time for yourself. And so I think men can actually help women by their example. So like women can think that's a bad thing. Oh, look at this guy, he's so self-centered and right. But he can show you how you can be more self-centered and think more about yourself first. And then for men, it's the opposite. A woman can teach a man how to think more about others and care more about others and
Mm.
finding that balance between the two together.
Okay. Well, actually, when I divorced my first husband, who really was, it was all about him all the
Hmm.
time,
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah.
And I was like, empathy, please. What I realized after the divorce was like, oh, wait, I was supposed to learn how to be more selfish or,
Yeah.
self-centered, if you
No,
will.
it's true.
And
I
he
totally
was supposed
agree.
to learn empathy
Yeah.
from me, which he
Yeah.
did, but
Yeah.
it took the divorce for us to
Yeah.
realize what we were supposed to teach each other. And then he ended up in another relationship with young children, women, like girls. So that was perfect, right?
Uh,
So it actually helped in that, regard, with that. And
yeah.
then it helped me because I started standing up for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. I'm curious what your thoughts of around this whole, you know, pandemic. So there's been a lot of criticism and judgment related to that in all
Mhm.
spheres, but we're going to
Uh-huh.
focus on this whole masculine feminine portion or aspect of the
Yeah.
judgment. So the judgment I'm hearing is that, there are all these mama bears, that basically are standing up, being front and center, being basically the target of attacks to stand up for whether it be society, their children, families, that kind of thing. And then the criticism has been, well, where are the men? And part of me is like, well, I heard that we're coming back to this. So there's like matriarchy, patriarchy, and now we're getting into patriarchal, like like a more balanced state. But in the meantime, that rise of the woman leader is supposed to happen. So just curious where, whether all that, um, the negative judgment about weak men and all that kind of stuff is actually real.
I think it has been real. Yeah, I think it's been real, and that's why there's people like me been feeling the calling to um get these guys to step it up. Especially I think particularly in the spiritual scene, right?
Mm,
I think there are outside the spiritual scene, I think there are strong men that have been speaking out on different things, whether they're speaking out things, you know, maybe they could use more of the spiritual groundedness and awareness, right? But in any case, yeah, I think that in the spiritual scene, um, men have been more in their feminine, and
okay.
and I think there are a lot of the men are realizing that there's something's happening from within where they're feeling called to integrate this masculine, and something's happening with the women where the women are wanting the men to integrate the masculine. So it's going together. So I feel like something positive is happening. That's things are evolving into another level right now. That's being called forth.
Okay. So there really is this, even though we call it criticism or judgment, that really is that calling forth of that balance of what we really need. Because right now, one of the mentors that I work with, yeah, in terms of law for mankind and things like that, he he's really funny. Okay, so he has a way of saying things that people could really take personally, but I don't. I think it's funny. So we had this like argument, the other day because he's like, well, if you actually read all the things of the women's suffrage movement, it was just to make you good little taxpayers, and then you women, wanted to go and go out and work and
Yeah,
blah 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 and all this kind of stuff. And so, the men now, you wanted to protect yourself, okay, but the men are supposed to be doing that. The men
yeah,
are supposed to be protecting you. The men are supposed to be protecting the children. So
yeah.
I was arguing with him a little bit. I'm like, I don't think it's all bad that women, women are in business, women are working. And yes, it would be lovely to feel relaxed and that, oh, our men have got our backs. I don't have to learn kung fu. But even in Chinese, like, ancient culture, I mean, who do we applaud? Wing Chun. Wing Chun is a 5'4" little woman who kicked everybody's butt, right? Like I always loved that, that persona. Um, so, does he have a case? I mean, is it sort of like women really shouldn't have been, trying to protect ourselves and let the men do the work?
I just think that what I'm feeling that's happening is there's this kind of revolution that's happening where the feminism thing is realized that it actually wasn't really feminism, it was masculinism. It was it
Ah,
wasn't women coming over their feminine, it was women going more into their masculine. And they're like, WTF, like what did we just do? So
oh
we
yeah.
actually want to access our feminine, but in order for them to access their feminine, somebody's got to hold the masculine. So now we come back to the men. So the men need to step into their masculine, which allows the women to step into their feminine. And like you and I talked about it, this is really kind of like um it's having the freedom to be yourself and live the life you want to live is great, right? So you can have a business, you could be thriving, you could be making lots of money, but most women would like some period in the week or some period in the day where they can rest in their feminine and feel the presence of a masculine man, in
Mm.
their lives. And so I think that's kind of what this revolution is about. And where it goes, we'll see. We'll see where it goes and
Oh my goodness.
what happens
Well, certainly
culturally.
pretty interesting. I mean, there's all this gender equality stuff going on,
Mm.
right now. And it's funny. At the first, I was like, oh gosh, here they go again. They're just trying to get rid of the man, the woman. They're trying to mix everything in, it's like I feel like people should be what they really desire to be, and at the same time, I think there is some sort of manipulative engine to try to pervert or convert things or confuse energy. So do you have any thoughts about this? Is there such a thing as gender confusion, or is this just have been hidden for so many years now that it's allowed, and say it's out there that, oh yes, oh my gosh, there's so many transgender, there's so many whatever, and we just never really honored their place in the world.
Hmm. Well, the primary thing to me is just this acknowledgement that men and women are different. You know, in fact, I was thinking about this recently. Is like the term that when I was growing up, they had the term the opposite sex, right?
Oh yeah.
Opposite sex, like not just different. You're in opposite places together. You know, so if you think of men and women as the opposite sex, it's like they have the opposite qualities that balance each other out, right?
Mm.
So I think the main thing is to me is like men and women are different, and it's great that they're different. Like it would be to me, it's not it's boring if everyone's the same. It's like having these differences and having these polarities and having them play off each other, um, and honoring the differences as opposed to wanting them to be the same. Um, that feels like that's where it's at, and you know, it seems sort of obvious that men and women are different, but this is a strange time where you have to say obvious things. We have to we have to verbalize obvious things.
Yes, well, people might laugh. It's funny because when we're in the skating rink, they have now renovated the rink, so there is a gender neutral bathroom.
Uh-huh.
And that's the one I use just because it's a single bathroom, and I don't want to go
Uh-huh.
down the hole.
Yeah.
um, and even in our small town, it seems like people are coming out of the woodwork that are claiming to be either the opposite
Yeah.
gender or I was like, wow, I did not know that was here. Like not to
Uh-huh.
say that it should or shouldn't. I just figured that's a big city thing,
Uh-huh.
but no, apparently not.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's very curious about that whole thing. I'm not for some of the sexually explicit books that they have in the library for children. Like I think
Hmm.
that the parents should be responsible,
Yeah.
for guiding that
Yeah.
piece, the sexual piece,
Yeah.
and the schools, whoever's making that decision,
Yeah.
to put them on the shelf
Yeah.
this way is I don't think is okay.
Uh-huh. The
Mhm.
gender neutral bathroom thing, I get a kick out of because it's like I've been in places where they have the gender neutral bathrooms too, and it's like, a woman's bathroom, I have seen it in a distance. And they're usually like really like nice and clean. Sometimes they have like flowers and things, right? And it's like, do you know what guys coming in like pissing on the toilet tops? Guys are a mess, It's like it's another area where it's like, I don't know if this is a good idea of these like gender neutral bathrooms.
Yeah, it's so funny because I remember whenever like James and I would go on trips and he would be like, "Oh my God, you should see the bathroom. It's
Yeah,
disgusting."
it's disgusting.
And I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Oh, somebody pissed all over the toilet seat." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Why do people do that?" Like it just was just like why do people do that? I don't get it. Oh my gosh.
And then I had a situation once where I went into a gender neutral bathroom and there was a woman in there, and the guy said, "Oh, you can't go in." I thought, "Oh, I thought it was a gender neutral." He's like, "No, but it's not," and it's
Oh,
just all very strange.
yeah, yeah, it is very strange. Well, I think that um when we come back to the idea of this divine masculine feminine dance, and
Yes.
if women recognize, hey, I used to be a girly girl, I used to
Hmm.
love princess
Hmm.
dresses and jewels and
Hmm.
pretty braids and things,
Hmm.
likely they're probably that 80%, right, that are feminine essence.
Yeah.
And then the boys, if they are the monster truck,
Uh-huh.
let's fight and kill each other with play
Uh-huh.
swords, and I'm gonna win and I'm gonna shoot you, cowboys and Indians. Most likely their masculine essence. Would you agree with that
Yeah, I
evaluation?
think a couple other things add to it. So some people are more balanced. So some people may have, they may be more, they may have feminine things that they're drawn to and masculine things that they're drawn to, right? So acknowledging those people. And then also like mentioning my own life, right? Like people can move through different stages of their life. And this would kind of be a talking point against transgenderism, right? Because it's like people can go into a phase where I'm feeling more masculine as a woman, I'm feeling more feminine but it's a stage you kind of move through and you go into a different stage, you know? So these things, as we go through different stages of development, um, we can just be in a stage where we're exploring different things. We're at, because it's all about like basically embracing, integrating all the different parts of yourself, you know, and we have the whole universe inside us. We have everything inside of us.
True.
So we may go to a phase where we want to explore this side of ourselves that we never explored before. And people told us it was bad and it was wrong. And, you know, and we suppressed it. Now we want to explore it. And then in 2 years, we're done with it. And we're on to the next thing, you know, especially teenagers or younger, you know, younger people, children, teenagers. It's pretty normal to just be going through different stages and phases and trying to figure out who you are and explore things with who you are. So I think especially in that stage, it's probably why that's anything too drastic to your body, right?
Oh, right. The
Until you have it.
surgeries and things like that.
Yeah,
So,
I wouldn't want to do anything that's like irreversible as you're just kind of
yeah.
exploring like these different aspects of yourself and, you know, these
Mm.
things that maybe you never looked at before inside yourself.
So not every tomboy is necessarily a primary masculine essence. It's a
Yeah,
girl.
exactly. Like you could have certainly why wouldn't you say that you knew girls that were tomboys as maybe when they were 13 or something and now they're, you know, a feminine woman that's a mother and has children and like there's these stages that people go through that they again I think we're kind
That
of
was my
just
sister.
here we're kind of here what's that?
That was my sister.
I
You know,
think we're
she was a
here.
tomboy. She used to play with worms, and I used to go, ew, right? And then
uh
now she's like a mom with two kids, and yeah.
yeah, and then maybe you explored some maybe more masculine aspects of yourself later in life. And it's like we have all these aspects inside ourselves. And I think our whole reason for being here is learning to embrace all the parts of ourselves, you know, and integrate all the parts of ourselves. So if there's some part of us that's disconnected, um,
Mm.
we may become aware of it like at some point in our life and be like, oh, this part of me I was pushing away, I was suppressing. Let me go really far into that now, you know, let me go all the way into it, and then it will balance itself
Oh,
out, and then I won't get it. Then I'll be kind of over that phase, you know.
oh, okay, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. And Brian, before we go on to the next question, could you share, how people can contact you and perhaps some of the things that you offer?
Yes. So my website is my name, brianpiergrossi.com. I offer personal coaching, couples coaching, group coaching. I also do some work with breath work, personal sessions, healing sessions, retreats, men's mastermind group.
Super cool.
I have a new project called The Circle, which is happening on Zoom on Thursday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern, which is a new kind of spiritual community for people that maybe aren't fully fitting in the box of religion, organized religion in a traditional sense.
Mm.
Can say more about that, but basically, it's pretty exciting. I'm just kind of sharing things I've realized and things I've learned and things that have inspired me, supported me, and creating a space for people to comment, reflect, and interact, and have a sense of community together. Also, have a Telegram group. I know you're a fan of Telegram like me, so
Yep.
Telegram group as well. Yeah, those
Yeah,
are some.
that's great. Yeah, you're really busy on that group. It's wonderful.
Mhm.
A lot of great stuff that you're putting in there. I was wondering if there was someone like myself, or a woman who's realizing, wow, I burnt out my adrenals trying to act like a
Yeah,
man and trying to compete on
yeah,
the business stage like a man.
yeah,
And there was a time where, I mean, and still is, most of our business mentors are men. Not
mhm,
all, obviously,
mhm.
but a lot of them are men, and then we kind of are like trying to emulate what they do, and then I'm realizing, wait a second, that's not working for me because this directional structured way
Yeah,
is too masculine for me, even though I'm really good at it because I'm trained it.
yeah,
But sometimes I just want to freaking change my mind.
yeah.
So myself was like, what do we do? So like how do women who maybe have slightly burnt them out trying to be men in their lives, how do we get back to or connect with that divine feminine essence?
The number one thing with women, when I'm working with a woman, it could be a man too, but the number one thing for the kind of person you're talking about is creating a space for her to relax, you
Mm,
know? And I think that's the number one thing. And it may be something that she hasn't experienced in a very long time, or maybe even never experienced, you know,
wow.
to have a space to really deeply relax. And that's through guided meditation. That could be through a number of different ways, working with the breath work. Um, and it's just also just the presence, the natural energetic presence that's there. So if she can relax, then that natural femininity will come to the surface, you know.
Ah. Okay, is
But
that why some of us women are kind of called to like float in the water?
sure,
You just feel like floating in the water,
that
with
can be a way.
no agenda.
Yeah. But when you're in kind of like a dynamic, like, in this, in America, in the business world, depending on what you're doing, right? But for a lot of people, it's like you're constantly in this kind of like battle
Go,
mode.
go, go.
Yeah, go, 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 but also you're kind of like, it's like you're competitive, but like competitive in a sense of like there's like a sense of like you're battling with other forces.
Hmm.
And so I think it kind of creates this energy where I can see it in a lot of women where they look very tense, and tight and not relaxed. And so over a period of time, extended period of time, it's bad for your health. It's bad for your health physically, mentally, emotionally,
We
and
call that corporate.
it cuts you off spiritually.
Yeah, I know a lot of women actually who have basically left their corporate jobs
Yeah,
because it was just, they said it wasn't healthy for me. I
yeah,
just couldn't do it anymore. And they were very, very good
yeah,
at what they did, but it just
yeah,
didn't,
yeah,
support them. They always
yeah,
felt like, they have to look behind their back all the time, like
yeah,
who was trying to take their
yeah,
job. They weren't,
yeah,
anyway, it was, I haven't
yeah.
been in that atmosphere, but it sounds really challenging.
Um, you're reminding me of this woman. You were mentioning the COVID era, and there was this, I forget her name, but she was the Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? And she had these like really draconian like rules and laws, and like it was like really super, one of the most oppressive countries in the world at
Yeah, I
that
was so
time.
shocked. Jacinta.
Yes, just
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah,
then one day she just comes up and has a press conference and is like, I'm out. I quit. I'm
yeah.
out. you know? And what occurred to me in that moment is like, this is not her being a feminine essence. This is not the role for her,
Mm-mm.
and she just complete, as far as I know, just completely disappeared from the spotlight, and just, I don't know what she's doing, but, wish her well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of women have just quit corporate and,
Yeah.
don't know really what to do with themselves. Now, what about, so for me, like personally, I'll personalize it. Some of the things that I feel supports me is like not having scheduled things, which is related
Yeah.
really. I have to schedule my non-scheduled things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like being in the bath, like being in the
Yeah.
bath with candles or,
Yeah.
essential oil, something like that. And my husband's really, it might be like 11 o'clock at night, which is like, super late, but I'm like, I really feel like taking a bath. And he's like, yeah, you go. Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you do what you
Mm-hmm.
need to do, honey. Like he's super supportive. The other day I was feeling a lot of stuff. So I literally like sat in the hammock and just laid there. Like was not doing anything. The dog was on my
Mm-hmm.
lap, but other than that,
Mm-hmm.
did nothing. Singing, dancing, um, that kind of thing is super helpful. Sometimes even get into like I went and did a whole bunch of jewelry making,
Mm-hmm.
because that I don't know, I just had fun with that kind of thing. So that's kind of like the doing part of how I felt it's been helpful. And I noticed that when I'd had my week-long light warrior training camp, Brian, so I was, on for 6 days. Like I was truly myself. just like love teaching, high energy, like funny, like just totally myself. And I think that was my divine feminine way of doing my business, if you will,
Mhm.
and that was really, really cool. What about men, Brian? So if a man goes, well, gee, I've done this, kumbaya stuff, this feminine stuff, and I'm being called to integrate the divine masculine, what can they do? Or there's some things that they can assist them in getting into that space and integrating that divine masculine energy.
I think the masculine, I'm going to speak from, spiritually awakened masculinity, right?
Ah,
So I think spiritually awakened masculinity, in a way, is more challenging
mm,
because the masculine is, I think the masculine feels most alive when there's goals and there's challenges. So challenges to overcome. And so it's kind of very sort of like linear challenges, goals, adversity, facing adversity, overcoming adversity, feeling like you did it, feeling the success of overcoming the challenge. Um, and and for the spiritually awakened masculine man, you need to do all of that and also recognize the timeless now, at the same time. So it's like this, we're moving, we're pushing forward, we're going to the greater frontiers, we're going places we've never been before, we're gonna make it happen, we're gonna get shit done, we're all this kind of like forward into the future, while at the same time recognizing that, in the absolute sense, there really is no future. It's just the timeless now. It's just the presence, as Eckhart Tolle would say, the power of now. And so I think be able to be in both of those, living in both of those at the same time, I think is the key to being the empowered, awakened masculine.
yeah, that is definitely challenging. I mean, being in the now for most people
Yeah.
is challenging. Certainly is for me. I figured, my ways of doing that, that work for me. Um, because in my relationship, because I've, done the medical school thing, it was very, very difficult for my body, to go through that,
Yeah.
to be so like in charge, in that leadership position. It was really hard. And so I'm
Hmm.
trained to, and even in business, and when I'm mentoring, it's sort of like, what are your goals? What are your quarterly planning? Like all
Yeah.
this masculine kind of structure. Um, and then like my husband is a quote unquote house husband, right? Who keeps the dinners going and the basic structure of the home. But it's like it's hard to imagine how house husband can be more masculine or focused or goal oriented, whatever, aside from that presence, than a woman who is in charge of a business.
Yeah. Yeah. He's joining the men's mastermind group, so we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out what
Yes.
happens.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny because, we talked a little bit about some of the ascetic practices. I know David Data mentions in his book, The Way of the
Uh,
Superior Man, where he talks about so men can get together with other men and other men can challenge them.
yeah.
Because it's not very helpful when it's coming from me. Definitely
Mhm.
not helpful, right? Because I was like, why don't you go, do this, or why don't you go do this, or the funny part is, he's like, oh, there's this place where Brian told us about where you can go and it's like a dark cave or a
Oh
dark
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
house and
Yeah.
and do you want to go? And I'm like, I could, but
That's such a great
the guy thing.
example.
I think
That's
you
such a
need
great
that.
that is a great example because every woman I've talked to about that is like, wow, what? Why would I want to do that? And every guy I talk to, not every, but the spiritual guys, they're like, that's awesome. That sounds amazing. So it's
Right.
it's funny. That's another example of the difference between the masculine and the feminine. It's like a
Yeah.
woman's
I
like,
mean,
I don't
I
want to put in a
could.
dark
I
cave.
don't feel a great pull because in turn, like I just know it's more of that ascetic practice, like being
Yeah,
present and
yeah, yeah,
masculine. And I'm like, well, I'm already really masculine, so I don't think this would be helpful for
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Like if I did a belly dance retreat, okay,
yeah,
that's, you
yeah,
know, I'd be more inclined to pay money for that than to be in
yeah,
a dark house
yeah.
for 7 days. Yeah, just saying.
Mhm. Yep. It's a great example.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, so I used to get really annoyed at my ex-husband for wanting to watch the movie 300 over and over and over again with his guy friends.
Yeah,
But I get it now. Like it's that that overcoming of the obstacles. And I think that in this day and age, because of the my other mentor, John, my Sovereign's Way mentor, was talking about how we have it really cushy right now. Like we have electricity, we have a
yeah,
house, we have our couch, we have our
yeah.
remote control. It's just really easy. Like there's no reason why you need to go to a house with like no lights. You know what I mean? So we don't go there because we
Mhm,
don't have to.
mhm.
So we actually, because the masculine doesn't have to like, kill the deer for supper or
Yeah.
whatever, right? It's just kind of like makes it watered down a little bit.
I've seen a difference between, speaking of what you're talking about, men that live, because I'm living in a rural area now, right? Where I was living in the city before. I see
Mm,
a big difference between men living in rural areas and men living in the cities. And
really?
yeah, I think the men living in the cities tend to be a lot more effeminate than the men living in the rural areas. And I think what I was thinking about it is like when you're living in a city kind of is the masculine,
It
like,
is. It is.
right?
David, I remember him mentioning that.
Yeah, it's kind of the structure and the order, and it's like it and the technology that we have now is kind of
Yeah.
plays that masculine role. And whereas if you're in the rural area, it's like you need the man to do all that stuff. There's nothing. There's no structural organization out here. Uh,
Right.
yeah,
It's like, well, I could chop wood. My ex-husband wanted me to learn to chop wood, and after he saw me swing the axe a couple times, he goes, "That's too dangerous. Give that back to me."
yeah,
Like he
yeah.
wanted me to be strong, right? So I'm
Mhm,
hewing logs, I'm chopping wood, and I was earning all the money at the time. I got burnt out.
mhm.
Obviously it wasn't the right balance for me, but it was interesting how it's like he wanted a buddy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think that's part of what we're talking about of this kind of like men becoming more feminine and is this urban people are more going more to the urban areas and urban living.
Mm.
And so we're more comfortable. So there's not really needed. There's not much like challenge to overcome or to face. And so I think men, yeah, get more soft. And
Mm. Unless
then
they're
women,
elite athletes, right? Then they are
sure,
pushing themselves.
sure. But then with that, and then the women are like, okay, well, I guess I got to do it. And they get more masculine, and then everyone's
Yeah.
angry and frustrated.
Right. Well, then
Things
now
are out of
they,
balance.
now with the whole, crazy rules of a biological male being able to punch and, beat in swimming or boxing or whatever, biological women, the women really don't have any chance, not that much anymore, to win, you know.
Yeah. And let me
Yeah.
ask you a question about that as a woman. Okay, because this ties into exactly what we're talking about. So why, just asking this question, why do women want to punch each other?
I definitely don't want to punch him. I think that okay, so I did have this attraction to Kung Fu.
Uh-huh.
Like as a child,
Mhm,
watching the women, Loi Kong Yang
mhm,
is the Cantonese. I'm butchering it, but is the saying. It's strong women,
mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so part of that, it wasn't because we wanted to be I didn't want to be like the dragon mom, but
Mhm,
part of that was knowing that no one's gonna F with you,
mhm,
you know? And I think that there was a self-protective, I'm like, well, if somebody else is going to protect me, I might as well learn to protect myself. So there's some of that.
self-defense.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely, the whole women in the boxing ring thing, I honestly I'm kind of like,
And then there's like the MMA too, where they go even harder,
oh
harder.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
cannot watch that. I mean, yeah, I just can't watch it. Yeah, it's really hard for me. I can barely watch the men do it,
Yeah.
but definitely women, it's even harder. Now, that being said, if you look at some of these women's bodies, right, and they're cut,
Hmm.
they're muscular, but I don't like when they look like men, but
Hmm.
when they're feminine, when they have the curves, but they're cut and they're muscular and they're strong, it is very attractive. Like I think it's like, wow, you're so strong. Like in the Anastasia books, right? she's crazy strong. Like she's
Mhm.
stronger than Vladimir, right? She can carry him on her back
Mhm.
and carry his backpack and run through the woods
Mhm.
and jump into trees and do all this. Like that is super cool. That's like superhero, superwoman. That
Yeah, that's interesting because the feminine is really the embodied component, right? So if you think more of like, let's say gymnastics, that's
mhm.
kind of more like that's really kind of more of a feminine sport. All the jumping and the flipping and like the dancing and all that kind of stuff. Like the feminine is the embodied component. So it does make sense when you talk about Anastasia, in the forest and the stuff she can do. Like, yeah, I think that, and that's something that I think men and women have gotten away from in our culture is the being embodied. You know,
Yes.
people have the struggles people have with obesity and being overweight and different health issues and so forth. So yeah, I can totally see the feminine woman being like um just embodied and but it's I think the thing that's interesting for me is like this like violence wanting to punch each other and like that seems like that's I'm not sure about that part.
Yeah, I never really gravitate to that. I think that in the kung fu movies, it was always like the women almost always were depicted as the heroes or the heroine
Uh-huh.
for being the protectors if there was no man,
Yeah. Yeah.
that could
Yeah.
protect. And in the Wing Chun story, it's Michelle Yeoh. This was forever ago, so she looks super young. And it's like she's so amazing at her kung fu. And there's this man who's Donnie Yen, who's incredible. But he's like this kind of like I would say more of the feminine in that he's like not as competent as she is, right? And he's always aspiring to be like, I'm going to protect you, right? And there's like no way, so it's not even close to her degree of kung fu, but there's always that desire. And at the
Yeah.
end of the movie, sorry, spoilers, guys, at the end of the movie, she does kick the bad guy's ass,
Mhm.
right? And says, okay, if I would, well, before she kicks her ass, he says, "There's, can I say ass on radio?" Anyway, so she says to them, if I win this fight, you will call me mom. Ama, okay, you will call me mother and you will not steal ever again. Is that an agreement? And they said, yeah, because they're thinking she's not going to get this,
Mhm.
right? So she does. She wins the fight, and the leader of the gang says, yes, mother, we will not steal anymore. Yes, mother, right? And they're so like, she's like the matriarch and this poor guy who has a big crush on her like that. I mean, what can he do? Like he's trying so hard to be her compliment. I think they do get together, but she's the one that kicks everybody's butt and
Mhm.
wins the fight. And I think it's interesting that she becomes the mother at the end of all that. I think there's something significant in that.
Becomes his mother.
Well, no, becomes the bad
Metaphorically.
guy's mothers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
metaphorically, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's good. So then as far as like polarity, like masculine, feminine, romantic, sexual polarity, um, you don't want to be the guy's mother, right?
No,
So
no.
you want to feel like the man is stronger than you. And then that creates the romantic sexual polarity. Is
Hmm.
actually, can I tell, do we have time for a little story about that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I might have told you a story before, but I think it's a great example. So there's a couple and they're kind of on like sort of like a romantic getaway. So they have a cabin in the forest and there's a something's like making a noise outside the cabin. It sounds like it's a big bear. And so um the guy is really scared and he says, "Honey, could you go outside and check if that's a bear?" And the woman says, "Sure, I'll go out and check." So she gets like uh, some kind of a stick or something and goes out and checks. And she's like, um, "I checked, and it's okay. There's no bear." And he's like, "Oh, thank you so much, honey." And then they kind of like cuddle, and he kind of like cuddles. She kind of cuddles him like she cuddled like a child, because he's scared. And then it's okay. So same scenario, second story. So they're in the cabin together, and there's something outside, and the guy sounds like there might be a bear out there. Let me check and see if you're safe. So he goes out and he checks, and he's like, comes back in, and he's like, it's okay, baby. There's no bear. We're safe. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. And then they make hot, passionate love. So it's like the thing that's cool about that story is they love each other. Both couples love each other, but there's a different dynamic in the
Mm.
polarity between the first one and the second one. It's just so it's like an example of how these things operate, in different ways, where there can be that mothering energy, or there can be the romantic sexual polarity that's present.
Yeah, and sometimes it gets mixed up because, like I mother my dog,
Hmm.
right? I'm like,
Hmm.
he's my baby because I,
Hmm.
I didn't have human babies in this lifetime.
Yeah,
So I treat him like my baby.
yeah,
And I've been really, conscious, more and more conscious of not being the mothering aspect for my husband. There's some
yes,
bad habits there that I got from my
yes,
mom and
yeah,
so on and so forth, like the reminding,
yeah,
and then the masculine gets so freaking annoyed, right? Stop
yeah,
reminding me, right? Stop being like my mother, right? And I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
but you're not taking responsibility. So there can be this energy. So it takes some, conscious awareness to go, well, if you forgets, you
yeah.
know?
One of the things I really like as a tip for men communicating with their, sorry, women communicating with their spouse or their
Mm.
boyfriends is, if you want them to do something, like let's say like the trash, like you can be like, let's say he doesn't take out the trash a lot, and you could be like, you never take out the trash, and why you do, and then it just feels like it's like a nag, so it kind of
Yes.
like turns him off from wanting to help. But if you could just find that like one little moment, maybe it's rare, but find that one moment where he does the thing that you like him to do, and be like, that makes me, I feel so good, I feel so, basically express gratitude and appreciation. Men love that, like, and then they want to do it again the next time.
Yeah.
There's something deep in men that they really do want to make women happy.
Mm.
And I think more than women even realize that that's the case. And
Yeah,
so,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, if women can just express that gratitude when the man's doing something they like, that they want more of, it'll encourage him, inspire him to do more.
And then if we know the love language is physical touch, right? It's
Yep.
even better.
Yep.
So there can be a touch. It doesn't have to be sexual,
Yep.
but it can be a hug, it can be,
Yep.
whatever, a kiss or
Yep.
whatever, spank,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep. Whatever's consensual.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You know. Oh, this is great. So Brian, if you could please share again your website where people get a hold of you, and then some of the offerings, that'd be really great before we end for today.
Yeah. My name, Piergrossi.com, is the website, and personal coaching, relationship coaching. So yeah, so one thing I should add of that too is there's the relationship coaching, which I'm working with you guys on, but there's also sometimes people will want to work individually with polarity. So
Mm,
maybe because they're single, or maybe because for whatever reason they just don't want to work with their person in the relationship right now. So that's an option as well. Um, the men's mastermind group, and then there's some different in-person offerings that I do as well.
right. You mentioned retreats
Yeah.
and yeah. And then can you tell us the name of your two books and where we can find them?
Oh yeah, the books, of course. The Big Glow, Insight, Inspiration, Peace, and Passion, and The Wow of the Now, Awakening to the Big Glow Within.
Nice.
Mhm.
Great. And then Amazon, your website.
Oh, I also have a podcast. It's kind of spontaneous. It just kind of happens when it happens, but it does exist. So there's a YouTube channel, and there's you can find my podcast, Brian Piergrossi podcast. You can find
Mm,
it on Spotify and all the usual places we find podcasts. I think I'd like to have you as a guest. You know, being a guest on my podcast sometime.
sure.
Okay.
Always.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be
you guys
super
all heard
fun.
that. We'll make that happen. And yes, you can get the book on Amazon. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, Brian, it's been a wonderful hour with you. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. And you're just doing some great stuff in the world. So thank you for all that love and energy you bring to the world.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Until next time. Bye for now.